and I took on a job at a retail store, just like a part-time retail gig. And I was waiting out the process. And within like maybe a few weeks, a month of me working at that retail job, they let me know that I did not get the position. They, because the interviews were kind of dragging out. I'd had to do like a panel interview and make a PowerPoint presentation, something I had never done before. I almost wanted to quit at that point because it was just like, I don't even have a computer at home. I was having to learn how to use Google Slides on my phone and make this presentation, to do this interview. But I just kept telling myself, I can do hard things. I'm going to do this. I'm going to see this all the way through. People at the library rallied around me just to give me a space to do my interview, to give me a laptop and a quiet room to do my interview because I needed help, and so I just knew like, no matter what happens, I did the absolute best that I could do. There is nothing that I would change about how I approach this situation. And even if I don't get it, man, I'm just so proud of myself. I wouldn't change anything.
Hey there, beautiful soul. Welcome to Cultivate Your Joyful Life, where we believe true fulfillment blooms from within. I'm Emily Liu, your certified life coach, and I'm on a mission to help you create a life you absolutely love. In a world where we constantly juggle priorities from career to parenting, relationships, and health, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or not enough. But don't worry, in this corner of the universe, I'm here to share practical tips and inspiration to help you access your inner joy right now. So, grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's cultivate your joyful life together. Here we go. Oh my goodness, welcome back to the show. All right, I know we are only 6 episodes deep, but this is easily one of my top 2 favorite episodes that we have on the show so far. I mean, I love every episode, but today's guest is truly something special. And up until 2 weeks ago, we were complete strangers online. Well, she knew who I was, but I had no idea who she was. And I am so grateful that she reached out to share her story with me, but now sharing it with the rest of you, because I know how inspiring she's going to be for anyone who feels like you are in a rut. You are in survival mode. You can't see any possibilities. You just see the problems in front of you. And she really talks about how to believe in yourself when the going gets tough. And she's such an incredible, raw, transparent, open, courageous storyteller. And she's going to take you along what I like to call her hero's journey. So how did she go from rock bottom, unemployed, living in ultimate scarcity, is what I'm going to call it, to getting to the other side of getting happily hired, really claiming a job that she knew in her gut was hers, but wasn't perfectly qualified for. And most importantly, how she turned a rejection into a yes. So if that inspires you, I know you're going to love her. I'm going to actually read her bio to you really quick. So in this episode, you're going to hear from Suraiyah Ortiz. She's a dynamic edutainer on a mission to revolutionize discussions on healthy sexual relationships amongst adults, particularly within the BIPOC communities. With her unique blend of stand-up comedy and interactive workshops, she aims to create safe spaces for candid dialogues while infusing interactions with lightheartedness and humor. Soraya wants to bring the sexy back into sex education while championing inclusivity and empowerment. Okay, by the way, I'm just now reading this after having interviewed her a week ago, and I think I'm going to have her back to the show so that she can talk about sex and be so open and transparent about it, because sexuality is very, very important to our livelihoods. So yeah, I might just bring her back. Now, before we dive into the show, I also want to share the resources that she talks about throughout the episode are also linked in the show notes. Essentially, when she's talking about the masterclass she attended, it's my free masterclass on how to land a dream job without applying online and wasting time. And that resource is just a must-watch webinar. I actually re-recorded it and updated it based on today's very difficult job search market. And if you haven't yet watched it, I highly recommend that you do, because within 60 minutes, I walk you through the mindset and the strategies on how to stand out just the way that Suraiyah did to make sure that you land an aligned opportunity for you. So if you're actively job searching, definitely check that out. And the other resource that I've linked down below is my new Career Clarity workshop. Career clarity is so important. And if you don't know who you are and where you're going, your job search is going to be 10 times more difficult. I want you to do what Suraiyah was able to do, which is basically look at something and be like, that is mine. That is so me. That's the job I'm going for, versus randomly applying online and spraying and praying and confusing yourself as well as confusing others. So if you need career clarity, you want to know who you are, what your gifts are, what opportunities, titles, industries, environments are going to be most well suited for you, then you must check out this brand new Career Clarity workshop. I'm hosting it live at the end of May, and it's a 2-day workshop where you're going to walk away with career clarity, or I'll give you your money back. So in order to learn more about that, be sure to go to www.cultivate.com/clarity, and I'll link that in the show notes as well. I hope you join us, and I can't wait to see you inside. All right, without further ado, let's get into today's amazing story about how to get happily hired even when the going gets tough. Welcome, Suraiyah, to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you.
Oh, I am so excited to have you, as I know so many people have been in your shoes or are in your shoes, your previous shoes, and they're just going to get so much out of today's episode, because I know from talking to you already, you're very inspiring and very wise. So I'm just really happy that I can tell your story to the rest of the world, because you have a really great story.
Thank you. I'm excited to share it.
Yeah. So I guess where we'll start is how we got connected, because we are complete strangers in many ways. I just talked to Soraya for the first time like a few days ago, but I was so pleasantly surprised when I got an email from you, and I'm just going to read it, or a DM, I should say. You slid into my DMs and you wrote, subject line, success story to share. And then you wrote, hello, Emily. We don't know one another. My name is Suraiyah, and I'd like to share my success story with you. Why? Because back in July or August of 2023, I attended one of your free workshops. I took all the notes I could. And yes, I can attest to this, because she showed me like 2 pages of size 10 font notes, which I'm very impressed by. But you said, I took all the notes I could and followed your free advice nearly to the letter, and I have achieved success. Yay! Is there any chance you would be open to a phone call or virtual chat sometime? I really want you to know how you helped me. It was always my intention to do so. Please let me know the best way to contact you and share my special story. Have a wonderful day. So I read this, and I just want to thank you, because sometimes I put things out there and I don't really receive feedback, and I forget like why I do this in the first place. So thank you so much, because if it just helps one person, then I really feel like my work and my time and my energy is worth it. But 2, I just love how you went into action and got to the other end. So I just want to start with, well, every good story has a beginning, middle, and end. So let's start with the beginning.
Okay.
And maybe you can just paint a picture of who you are and what got you into connecting with me on this online world.
So back in the summer of 2023, I was beginning a job search. It had been a really difficult, several months that I had been unemployed. I'd lost the job and things got, really difficult. And I'd gotten to a point where it was just like, no one's coming to save me. I have to figure some things out for myself. And I was on Instagram, and I'd been following a few people who do like resume coaching and help with, figuring out how to find work and things like that. And I just kind of happened to come across you. I think maybe you came through as an ad on like my For You page. I'm not entirely sure. The algorithms just, they wanted us to meet. And I saw that you were giving a free workshop. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. I'll see what I can get from it. And during the workshop, like I took, like I said, all these like really, really detailed notes about like, all of the tips that you were giving. They were really helpful. And I took notes, and it was my intention to be able to invest in the program. But at the time, I was struggling, so I just thought to myself, I'm going to do the best with the information that I got from Emily. I'm going to follow all of the tips that she gave, and who knows what will happen. And that's pretty much what I did. And that took me from point A to a lot of other points until eventually, here we are, just being able to speak today.
Beautiful. And we'll definitely get to that. I guess just so people have an understanding or context, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, if you can just describe like what the difficult time was, and what you left, like what was your previous career before stumbling across this workshop?
Okay, so I guess it's a little bit of a complicated answer, but the job that I had lost it was kind of just a job. It was just, holding me down, giving me some money. And previously, like before that, I had been, it's kind of hard to say this because I haven't been doing it in a while, and I sometimes feel a little trepidation about like owning it, which I wish that weren't the case, but I'm a stand-up comedian. And for about 6 or 7 years, I had been consistently performing stand-up in New York City. And then the pandemic happened, and I stopped for a few years. I tried to get back into it, and it just felt hard. A lot about me had changed, and I didn't want to talk about the same things. I had a lot of like new like anxieties and a lot of things that had happened that had caused me a lot of pain. I didn't feel very funny. And so I was just kind of like working these survival jobs, and I got fired, and or rather I got, that they didn't have enough money to keep everybody on. So I was let go, and, I fell into a really difficult place financially. I got into rental arrears. I was behind several months, and, I had to get on public assistance, which this was the first time I had to do that, in a very, very, very long time, like since I was a kid. So that was incredibly humbling. And, at a certain point, I was making, like with unemployment, I was making less than $800 a month. I was living on less than $800 a month. And then when that ran out, it was less than $200 a month. It was insane. I felt anxious and depressed all the time. And, I just didn't really know what to do. And I would watch things about like how to, kind of step out there and make improvements. But I just felt so down, like I was in such a down place, and it kind of took getting, I guess, to a bit more of like a rock bottom before I felt like I have to do something, I have to try something,
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And by the way, you're in New York, right?
Yes.
Okay. So like $800 even in New York is not like, that's nothing, right?
That's nothing. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nothing.
But you made it stretch is what I'm hearing. And I'm sorry, I have to just pause because the coach in me is like hearing you say, I'm having a hard time owning that I'm a stand-up comedian. And I just need to like pause for a moment because this is something I talk about a lot is your identity is not tied to your current status or your current employment or your current job title. Because I do know a lot of people get laid off or they make a transition. And then they're like, when I go to a networking event, what do I say I am?
Right.
Because I don't know, like I'm unemployed. But the truth of the matter is that at your core, you are a comedian. Like you are funny. You love sharing stories and making other people laugh. So regardless if you're doing it actively or you're doing it on a stage, I just want to ask you, what are some of the best qualities and traits that you have as a stand-up comedian?
Well, first, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That's very validating. I think I have a really fun way of being able to tell stories. I love to tell stories, and that's mostly like what my comedy is about. It's very biographical, and I'm kind of I'm really silly and ridiculous, which, I'm a lot more buttoned up in my, I guess, professional life. But just like being able to command silliness, I'm really good at doing voices and impressions. I can mimic certain things very, very well. And it helps me to tell my stories. It helps me to like get into character. And I guess also like I'm a very physical person as a comedian, so I don't mind getting a little like I'll kind of die for the joke, I'm not still on stage. I'm not like I yell.
You're animated.
I curse. I'm very, very animated on stage. Yeah. Yes. So I think those are some of the things that probably help me in my comedy.
Yeah. So I just want to highlight that because what I'm hearing is I'm silly, I'm ridiculous in the best way. I am animated, I'm alive, and I love telling stories. And so just let me highlight that for you because, again, regardless of your employment status or what you do, that's like who you are at your core. And I know that because you've been on this path for stand up and it's always going to be a part of you. Yeah. So just own it.
I'm going to
make you own it. Yes. Okay. So what I heard is, there was a lot of scarcity, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiousness, a lot of depression around and where did that stem from aside from the financial worries?
Aside from the financial, a lot of the hurt and the depression came from trying to recover from a breakup. I was in a long distance relationship during the pandemic, and it was an international one. So there were several months, more than a year, that I was physically separated from the person that I loved, and it made us being in a relationship very difficult. I think long distance relationships are difficult as is, but when you throw in like travel bans and all these new like restrictions on travel and staying in people's countries, it just makes things a lot harder. And I eventually ended the relationship. It was just very difficult. We weren't spending time together, and it was just really hard because I still love that person. I didn't leave because I didn't want to be with them or I didn't love them anymore. It just was too difficult, and I still care about that person deeply, but it just, I think maybe we need different things, and I have to honor that. And so that on top of like the financial difficulties, it just felt like I was in a very low, empty place. And I also realized like I was coming to realize like a lot of the insecurities that I have and needing to fix a lot of that. And so it was almost like being leveled and then trying to figure out like, wow, who am I? What do I want? What's important to me? And some of those questions I still don't have the answers to. You don't change overnight, but it's like I'm almost 40 now. And when I started comedy, I was in my late 20s. So it's different. It's like, I can't go back to being a 30-year-old comic. You know what I mean? I can't, there's certain things that I just felt like I just can't do things this way anymore. I can't try to be this version of me anymore. And I don't know who this new version of me is yet. So, there was just some like trying to figure all of that out. And it's not easy. I don't have a lot of the answers.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that because you're right. It's not like you just swallow a magic pill and then you're like, I know who I am. It really is kind of this self-discovery stage of taking the time to reflect and peel back. And I often find like in relationships, people always say like you're supposed to find your better half or like find your other half. And that's what's supposed to complete you. But I recently heard something that I loved, which is like in a relationship, you need two wholes to come together, like two whole people that are complete on their own and independent on their own and just know who they are. So grounded in like what I am, who I am, what I offer. And then the two wholes come together. And then that's when you have more interdependence. Like I can be independent from you and I could be with you in a very healthy way. versus like codependent, where I'm like trying to find somebody to fill a void or trying to help me figure out who I am. So I just really want to honor what you just said there, because that's huge. And I really believe in divine timing, and that things like always work out in the best way that they should, or like people come into our lives to teach us certain lessons for a season that we're in. So I just really want to honor you for making difficult decisions that aren't easy.
Yeah. And I do feel like this person did, come into my life to kind of, it's a little bit bittersweet, but it's one of those things where it highlighted all of the ways that I felt like I wasn't enough on my own. And I don't think I even really thought of myself before that time as, needing to feel that or understanding what that even feels like, right? Feeling enough or being whole, and that's difficult to do. I think when you maybe have a history of relationships where it's obvious what the other person's flaws are. And so it's kind of like, oh, they're dishonest or they're this, but you don't really see how maybe you don't show up for yourself or you don't have enough boundaries or, like those things sometimes get shown to you through a partner that is maybe more stable or secure, and like the relationship is somewhat healthy. You can see kind of like, oh, okay, this is me, and this is my stuff. And so those things kind of came like smack into my face, and it was like, I need to work on some things. And I think this might be, it's not the case for everybody, but for me, I do feel like it was a journey I had to take by myself. And I just kind of had to trust myself to do what I needed to do, even though it really didn't feel good. It is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I love that, because what you just shared resonates so much, in that oftentimes people hold up a mirror of like what we actually need to see in ourselves. Like we always think it's that person, and it's easy to like blame another person and point the finger, but it's like, oh, but actually they're just holding up a mirror so that I could see something that's missing, or something that I want more of, or something that I need to focus on. So beautiful. Okay, so we're talking a bit about, we just covered so much, but like I'm hearing you say you're in a difficult place. And I love what you just shared at the end there about trusting yourself. And so can you talk more about that during this tough period of your life, and how you were able to trust yourself when the relationship is awry, the career's not working out? And I know job searching on its own is filled with rejections. So let's talk about how you trusted yourself, and then how you trusted the process.
And just to clarify, when you like, do you mean as it pertains to like following your guidelines, or
just in general? Like, how did you navigate the job search in this rough period of your life to just keep, especially like when you're feeling that depression? I know how easy it is to be like, what's the point? Why bother? Like even getting out of bed some days might be really tough. So I just love to hear like how you navigated all of that.
Well, there was a lot of crying, maybe every day. There was a lot. I was very hurt, and I had a lot of feelings to release. And even that, just like, I always thought, because I've been such a sensitive person, I've always known myself to be a sensitive and emotional person. So I always thought that meant I knew how to process my feelings. But I've actually learned that like, that's not quite the same. Having an emotional reaction to something is not the same as like feeling your feelings. And so even that was something I kind of had to teach myself about. I was learning a lot, and still am, about like self-love, being compassionate to myself, trying to, it has really helped, even though it is not always easy. It is literally a practice that I've had to put in place. But I've kind of learned that like, I get into this place of being very critical and judgmental of myself, comparing myself to other people. Like the inner talk sometimes is so harsh and hurtful that I'm just like, why do you hate me? But I don't hate me. And my, I guess, inner child doesn't hate me. She's just hurt, and she doesn't really know how to process things, doesn't know how to express herself, express her fear. So I kind of treated myself like a child. And when I would get into these really difficult spaces where I felt like I was, not doing well, not doing what I needed to do, I just would try my best to be loving and kind to myself. It felt like you know, yes, there are going to be times where I need to take actual action, but I really need to start with being very loving to myself. And what would I say to little me who is struggling with something? What would I say to my little nephew? I would see myself through him, and if he was struggling or afraid, how would I speak to him about that? How would I help him through that? I thought about how I care for and speak to my close loved ones, my family, my friends, and how much space I have for them. And so it was well, if I can have space and compassion for all of these people, I need to direct that inward. And I just had to keep doing that all the time. And sometimes that meant sometimes physically giving myself a hug and just choosing not to beat myself up, which is, I think, something that can be really easy for people to do. We maybe quite literally beat ourselves up. And it was just I'd made an agreement with myself. A few years ago, and I told myself, no matter what happens, I'm not going to talk down to you anymore. I am not going to hurt you anymore. I'm not going to be mean to you. I'm just going to give you love. So when you're freaking out, even when you're making me uncomfortable and I don't like how you're expressing yourself, I'm going to still show you love and show you patience and just be with you. And that's kind of how I got from point A to point B. And I also had to remind myself, there's small victories. My best isn't going to be the same every single day. And I guess it really came down to being loving towards yourself. And I think that's something that gets thrown out a lot, self-love. Well, you need to love yourself, but you don't really know how to do that. And if you don't outright hate yourself, you may think, I like me. What do you mean? Yeah. So I had to learn, and I had to kind of become a parent, reparent myself a little bit in ways that maybe I needed more of. I maybe needed more patience. I needed someone to be I know you don't want to do this, but we're doing it. We're going to take it one step at a time. And that's kind of what I've done. And that's what I continue to do.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I personally,
oh,
it was so wonderful. And I'm just going to echo that back to you because you hit on so many important things. The first thing I heard was really allowing yourself to express your emotions. I think a lot of people feel that in order to manifest or to live an abundant life, you can't have any negative thoughts. You can't have any negative feelings. This negative energy is going to attract more negative things. But actually what you shared there of just emotionally processing and letting it ride the wave of everything that you're feeling and not judging it. That's the biggest thing. Not judging it, not shaming it, not feeling guilty about it. Because when you do that, then it just recycles and it never really leaves your body. But I love that you're just emotionally regulating yourself and even hugging yourself. And all of those things are so tender and important so that your body really receives that.
Right.
And then I heard on a more spiritual and mental level is the inner child. And I love this work so much because we all have effed up childhoods or childhood wounds. And what we don't realize or recognize as adults, because we're never taught it, is that our inner child is still in us. And so much of the patterns and the triggers that happen in life is just because our inner child it's triggering our inner child of oh, this is happening and I never got what I wanted and needed. So I love that you're reparenting your inner child. And then the other part that you mentioned, which is the inner critic, the part of us that is always self-defeating or beating us up more than anyone else that we would talk to. We would never talk to another person or a niece or our younger selves that way, but we do it to ourselves. There's something called IFS, Internal Family Systems and Parts Work. And what's really important is to know that there's no bad parts. All of our parts are here to protect us or to serve a greater purpose. So I just want to ask you that inner critic part that comes up and says the nasty things or why are you not further along than this other person? I'm curious what you feel their highest intention is for their loving purpose.
I do think I feel that I've become a little bit more familiar with this part of myself. And, I really feel that she wants to keep us safe. Maybe sometimes safe, like she senses actual danger, or maybe just safe emotionally. Like maybe she thinks, I think she's afraid of being, or, nobody wants to feel like humiliated. That can feel dangerous too, or rejected. And so, like these days, like I've gotten better at being like, I don't always catch it, I don't always catch it. But when I do, I've gotten better at just kind of, being like, I understand that you're scared, or I understand something about this makes you feel really vulnerable. Maybe you're afraid of being embarrassed, but this is not like a literal danger. We're not going to die from it. So I'm going to do it. And then like sometimes sometimes I'm very stern. I might speak with that part of me as like an actual parent. Like, hey, I hear you. I understand, but I am doing this, and I am in the driver's seat, not you. So you're, like, I would like for you to get on board. Like, I'll give you a bit of time. I'm listening to you, but this is not what's making the decision for us, and so sometimes she's able to just kind of chill out and like, let me do what I need to do. But yeah, it's taken quite a lot of time and practice to hear these things when they happen and be able to, maybe just sit with it, and sometimes I don't force. Sometimes I'm just like, okay, you're scared. So let's be
I love
scared.
that. Our parts just want to be seen, heard, and understood. And I think also just to add into there, I love all of your tools. One of the things that I think could be the most helpful too is just really expressing gratitude and thanking that part, because it's holding a huge job of trying to protect you from
thanks for trying to keep me safe.
Yeah. And I see you. And this is like, now that I'm an adult, here's what I'm going to do. And I just think that's so powerful that you've, on this journey, have done so much self-reflection and discovery and really created these tools. Because I feel like a lot of us go through life and we don't know any of these things. Like, I love, about inner child and parts work, and you've just done so much inner development. And I really think like until we hit like a rock bottom or something goes really wrong in our lives, we don't really seek this out. But now these tools are going to be here to support you for the rest of your life, which is amazing. So I just want to honor you for that. How did you find all of this self-development stuff?
Ooh, a lot of searching, just trying as best as I could to understand myself and understand why I didn't feel very confident, or, why I had these insecurities or this like harsh inner voice, why I was so judgmental and struggled with like guilt and shame and all this stuff. I wanted to understand it. And that led me to it's not been like a linear path. There have been a number of things that I've explored, some therapies, some workshops, a lot of like self-improvement, but I got to a point where I decided to stop, to give myself a break, because it felt like I have to like, I've learned a lot of tools, but it's kind of like when you want to get in shape and you're watching all these exercise videos and you're learning about it, but you're not going out and doing the exercise, right? Like at some point you just have to go and do the exercise and let that be the thing.
Integrate it.
Yes, exactly. And so I just felt like I was accumulating all of this information and understanding, which is great. But I had to at some point like put some of these tools to use. And I also had to see that like, hey, I don't need to be constantly like, digging in and diagnosing myself. Let me just be me. Let me just see how it might feel to be myself, to actually like just live my life, be okay with making mistakes even, because that's a thing that like, I don't know if it's a perfectionist thing or maybe a fear of punishment or things like that. But like, I'm afraid to make mistakes. And it's just like, well, I know lots of people who make mistakes, and I don't think they're bad people, or, so why can't I make a mistake? That's a part of learning how to trust myself. And there were just so many things that I tried. Some things weren't for me because they felt too like digging into your trauma all the time without having the proper like guidance and support to deal with things like that. Things like shadow work, which I feel like it's, again, something that has become a very popular term and very popular to talk about. But I think what a lot of people might not realize is like, it's not cute. It's not fun. It doesn't feel good. It's not something you just put on a meme. It hurts a lot. It's very hard. And I don't think that we have enough information about how to really do that. And I quite honestly feel like people need a lot of support around doing that, whether it might be therapy or just someone who's gone through something before. But it's just not one of those things where it's like, I did shadow work on Sunday and now I'm fixed. Like, no, it can be a pursuit that takes a long time to try and integrate those parts of yourself without doing yourself further harm by like interacting with things that you don't really know how to process. And so I had to kind of learn some of that the hard way. And I think I've been developing my intuition throughout this time. I've taken a lot of lumps and bumps, but it's been teaching me how to trust myself a lot more. And I think I got to a place where I realized like, I'm never going to be perfect. I am always going to be a person in progress, a person in change and growth. This is not going to be the last difficult thing that I experience in my life. And I just kind of have to like, it's par for the course. I don't have to transform and evolve to this point where I'm like this, like, unemotional kind of guru who never has a wrong thought. That's not going to be me, I can't be a good comedian if I can't like dig into some of my more dirtbag.
You gotta be relatable.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love I don't really like the word perfection or imperfection or perfectly imperfect, because I really do believe in progress. And I love how you just said that. Like, it's really about a progress and it's about an evolution. And there's really no finite like end goal. Like, there's always going to be something that is a learning opportunity. And it just comes whenever with your intuition, like knowing, okay, I'm ready to examine this or I'm not. And that's totally fine, because I'm not broken. I don't need to be fixed. I'm perfect the way, like I'm the way that I am. Right. And that's great. That's good. There's no bad parts. Yeah. I love that. Okay. So I know we talked a little bit about kind of where you've been prior to finding my workshop. Tell me a little bit more about the biggest nugget you took away from the workshop that you feel was the like click to it all.
Oh, that's going to be hard to answer, because there were so many, like, I'm just looking at this sheet trying to like remind myself what was the thing that most stood out to me. I think there were so many things that just seemed very helpful and like just very down to earth information. I also just found I found your workshop to be so validating and comforting, and I think that helped. It's like having someone kind of like give you a hug, when you're just like feeling really down. And I would say, man,
I feel for job seekers, by the way, especially in this market. But I've been a job seeker myself, like many, many, many times, because I have a very non-linear career. I've been let go. I've voluntarily quit. Like, I just haven't found, like, for most of my 20s, I didn't find a place that I'm like, I love this place. I want to stay here forever. My like longest stint was a year in most companies. So I just feel for job seekers, because I know job searching so intimately.
Yes. And I'm very much the same, because I've always been someone who wants to like express myself creatively. The medium might change, but I just know that that's what I want to do. And that has always meant like survival jobs. And so like you, the most I had ever really held a position was a year, maybe. I did a lot of gigs, and I like that. Like, I like to do gigs. I like doing things on my own term, making my own hours. I've done so many different things. And I think really like comedy is probably the most consistent thing that I've done for a very long time. But I would say just in going back to the workshop, I think, again, there's quite a few things that I could pick out that I found to be just really, really helpful and like helping me approach my job search different. I think it was that like overall you talked about, it was like talking about how to approach it, like thinking about it differently, just kind of made something click. Like when I learned that the way that I was searching for jobs and things like that was like really kind of very passive and outdated and just like, this is not the thing to do. But it was like, it's like breathing, like that's all you know to do, And I think that like, you just really kind of opened up the way that I thought about approaching the job search. You know what I mean?
I know. I saw in your notes you wrote I'm a passive candidate.
Yeah, because
That
I
made
was
me
I was
giggle.
doing that thing where it was like, get on Craigslist or whatever job board, see what's available. And I always would start at the same place, which was kind of like, what have I done before? What could I still do? Which was, whack, because it's like, well, there's certain jobs that I've done that I could do that I don't want to do anymore. I don't want to keep beginning from there. I'm past that.
Yes.
And so it just wasn't, my job search just felt daunting. Like I'm sure it does for a lot of people. It's just like, I don't want to do those things anymore. But I don't know how to bring these like mishmash of skills into something that is an actual like career, or maybe it's like into like a job or something
Like
more
a path.
stable. Yes. Like I don't know what to do. And I keep trying to like, I kept trying to like funnel my skills into things where they weren't really wanted there or needed there. And it just felt like this, like, where do I fit?
Yeah.
So I think it was really helpful. Like you talked about getting clarity, and you talked about, thinking about things that maybe you've done before that you really enjoyed, and how can you kind of like remix that? I think that was like, yes, wow. Like that's when the wheels kind of started to turn. And after that workshop, I wrote a list. I was like, I really loved this job. I like this. I like this. And even if they weren't related to each other at all, it just gave me an idea of like, okay, these are things that I enjoy. And now I have a starting point. I have something that I can work from. And that's really what helped me. Like once I was able to identify something, and I hope I'm not skipping ahead of you, but I was able to identify something I had done like maybe a decade before, and thought, how could I bring that back? Like, how could I match that with like a little bit of my like performance and, event planning, and like, how can I put that all into one thing? And that's when I was really able to kind of like apply your steps and like the tools, and it really changed things for me.
I love what you just shared, because what I'm hearing you say is that you're such a multi-talented, multi-passionate, like I have a variety and I'm a generalist and here, and here. And so what do I do with all of that? But you really took a step back and just started to brainstorm and reflect. And I think so many job seekers resonate with that. Like, I'm going after the same thing I'm trying to get out of. Like, because it's like the low hanging fruit or like the dangling carrot, like this is the easiest, but why would I put myself back in an environment or a job or responsibilities that I don't really enjoy? So share with us from your brainstorming what you ended up going after.
So, before I answer that, it just occurred to me, there was also something else that you said that really helped me to feel like relaxed and let off the hook. You said you don't need to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. And it was just like, okay, I'll just start with right now, right? So
really quick, in college, like you are supposed to pick a major, and then that like decision feels so finite, because it's like, okay, well, whatever my major is, I'm going to find a career in that, and I'm going to climb up the ladder. Yeah, right. Not anymore.
That's just not how it works. I was a theater major. I never even performed in a play in college, So it's just, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to like, I am not doing what I thought I was doing in college. But I did find that to be really helpful. It helped me like take a lot of pressure off myself, because I think it's also okay sometimes to prioritize like your well-being and your stability. And so it felt like I was already having such a difficult time trying to get back into comedy and trying to like put on that old comedy skin. It's like, look, how I perform might need to change, and I don't know what that looks like right now. So let me work with where I am. And, I don't have to make that my job right now. Maybe that could be a hobby again. Maybe it could be because I need to connect to the fun of it. I need to play. And it just feels so serious, me being like, I need to make money from this. I need to be, it just takes away from the creativity of it. And so that was really helpful. And I just wanted to say that. But where I got to, I thought about this time where about a decade ago, I worked at this adult toy store called, should I say the name? I think they would be okay with it.
If you want to.
I have nothing but
or you could just leave it at that. Yeah.
It was a very popular and is still a very popular adult toy store in New York City. They had a few different stores, and I was a sex educator. So it was a retail position, but it was a very informative and like educational retail position. And, we talked to people about sex. We talked to people about pleasure, help them to find like toys, books, things like that. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that job. I taught workshops as well. And I really liked that. It was something that felt like creative and kind of like, it allowed me to be free. And I could also apply some of like, my theatric nature to it, like, especially if I was teaching something. So I was able to kind of like fuse all these different parts of my person and, channel it into that position. And I was like, man, how could I bring something like that into the present? I would love to do that again, but I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to have to do the retail part. And I don't necessarily like want to start my own business. So what can I do? And I just started to Google search sex educators NYC, and I saw a position pop up with Planned Parenthood. And I read the description. And I like, based on all the like, I'm not saying I met all the requirements, but the majority of things that they listed, I read that job description and I was like, that job is mine. That job is mine. I was like, who would be better? And I just felt that it was just like, because being a sex educator is not a very popular thing. And it was just like, someone's going to do it. It's going to be me,
I love that.
I just felt so confident seeing it. And I was like, I'm going to go after this. I'm going to apply to it. And then that's how things kind of took off.
Oh my gosh, I can't breeze through this. We got to like dig into what you did.
I'm here. I have plenty of time.
Your resume, you put your old job, your retail job from many, many years ago. Mm-hmm. And you redid your resume. How did you feel about your resume since you didn't have like all the relevant skills or recent experience, I guess?
Okay. So this is another cool thing that I took away from your workshop. So based on the skills that I had, right? Like having been a sex educator before was obviously going to serve me. It's like a direct correlation, even though the job is a little bit different that I'm doing than that. But one thing that helped was because I thought about how I could bring myself into it, I didn't feel like I needed to leave out things that, like, I felt like my being a comedian, my being like an event planner or like a youth mentor, all of that, I was like, that's all going on my resume. Because if I'm going to apply for a job, I want them to know who they're getting. I want them to know that, yes, I'm interested in this. I'm passionate about it, but this is also a part of me and it's never going to stop being a part of me. And if you're going to hire me, I want you to be hiring me, Soraya. I want you to be hiring me knowing that I have a passion for performance and that I excel in these things. I'm a public speaker. I can do that. I just wanted I didn't want to have to like hide these parts of myself, or make it seem like they weren't important, because it's like, no, this is important. And you may not be able to piece it together right now, but I know how this can help in this position, And for the first time, what I did, something that you had mentioned, I'd never even thought to use this before. I'm not a very technical person. I learned ChatGPT and how to use that to help me work smarter and not harder, because I think, a fairly decent resume writer on my own. But it takes a long time. It takes days. It takes weeks. I'm just like in the library, just like editing down. And I was just like, I just don't have the time or desire to spend, doing that. And I set out to allow myself to like try new things on this journey. I was like, I'm going to try new things. I'm going to take all of the steps that I learned from Emily's workshop, and I'm going to follow them in order, step by step. And that was one of the biggest things that helped me, was even though I wasn't able to invest into your actual like paid program, and I really wanted to. And at first I was like, I need that to be able to do. But I was like, but I don't have that. What I do have is all of the resources that she shared with us for free. So what I'm going to do is follow those things to the best of my ability. And if I get stuck, I'll take the next step. I'll figure something out, but I'm going to see how far I can get just using everything that she shared in that workshop. And so if you haven't been told, or if you're not aware, it's like what you shared and what you share is so, so valuable that I was able to, I hope it's okay to say, I was able to really change the way that I approach my job search just by attending one of those free workshops. It helped me so much, just even with my like confidence in myself. And yeah, I mean, when I start, so like I worked with ChatGPT, and what I did at first, it was like, I want to write a mission statement because I want to approach this in a way that feels authentic to me, which means I can't be completely like buttoned up. You know what I mean? Like it has to be kind of free and a little creative. And I wrote a mission statement based on the things that I wanted to do and what I felt like I had to offer. And then I turned that mission statement into my, what's the
summary?
Like the profile, the summary, right? The professional summary. Because I felt like it spoke exactly to what they were going to see on the resume. It spoke to who I am and what I was bringing. And from then on, I just started to piece together the rest of the resume. And it was really helpful. It was so helpful to work with this technology. Which, you know, prior to that, I was intimidated by it. I was kind of like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be, dabbling in things like that. But it's like, well, other people are going to use it to help themselves. So why would I leave myself out,
Absolutely. Okay, Soraya, I need to pause for a moment because I know you're giving me credit, but I actually want to just acknowledge you because you are, one, resourceful, but two, you're such a massive action taker. And three, I like how you're getting creative and using technology to work for you and like really partnering with it versus just being scared of it. I actually have a training called how to use ChatGPT for your job search with 99 plus prompts. So I'm a big advocate of using technology and just working smarter, not harder. But also I want to just preface what you said too about your transferable skills. And what I'm hearing is you really were able to not hide any parts of you. I like how this whole conversation is about parts now. Really bring your full self, and you helped connect the dots. So it didn't look like a mishmash of everything, but you knew who you were and how this was going to be so advantageous for Planned Parenthood. And you were able to translate it both on paper and I'm sure during the interviews as well. Yeah. So kudos to you for doing all that.
Thank you.
That's huge. Because I think a lot of job seekers buy into the story of, I don't have all the skills. I don't have the qualifications. I don't have that experience. I don't have the industry experience. But hopefully, if you're listening to this, you can see Soraya never worked for a nonprofit or had this specific title prior to landing that job.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of job seekers think that they're less marketable because they've been unemployed. And here you are like saying, I was let go. And there were how many months or years even was it between the layoff and starting the job?
Let me see. It was about until I actually landed the job. It was a bit over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe like 13, 14 months. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So kudos to you. I know you want to share some other things, but I want to put a pin in this question. Like, how did you keep going during this period?
I kept telling myself that I can do hard things because I tend to feel very scared. I don't always feel very competitive, and it can be very, very intimidating. I'm not always the most like socially outgoing person, even though, I think that's an assumption that people make because I'm a performer, is that I'm just always on, but I'm not. That's when I'm on stage, but off stage, it's like I keep to myself quite a bit. And, it can be hard to kind of like make connections and to network and things like that. I don't like that really inorganic feeling of like, going to an event and trying to like give out your business card to 50 people. I don't like it. I dread things like that.
Yeah.
But I kept telling myself like through each step, I can do hard things. I'm going to keep showing up. And I was willing to celebrate the tiniest wins. I'm talking about just even being like, it's raining outside and I sure don't feel like going to the library to work on this right now. But I'm going to go. And then I would go and I would work on something, whether it was 10 minutes or an hour or 2 hours. And then afterwards it was like, all right, I did that. And I would, maybe treat myself to something. I would share my good news with somebody. I just kept finding like little ways to celebrate me continuously showing up for myself. Like every single small thing that I had achieved, I was willing to celebrate it. And that, I don't know if that's something I've really given a lot of thought to before, but I just felt like I need to be my biggest cheerleader right now. And so that helped me to keep showing up, was knowing that like, hey, I'm rooting for you, and we can take things a piece at a time. Like, sometimes like the smallest thing, I never realized how powerful it was just to be able to say, I can do this. I can do this. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to take it apart piece by piece. And I will do one thing and then I will do another thing, and I don't have to know how the journey is going to unfold, but I'm just going to take it like bit by bit. I'm not really like, I believe in positive affirmations, but not to the extent that I'm like, hypnotizing myself. Like at a certain point you have to take action. And sometimes you don't believe the affirmation, and that's okay, but that was one thing that I felt like was helpful. Like, I can do this. I can do hard things. And
I did it.
Myself. And I did it. Yes.
I did it. And I'm going to celebrate, because each time you celebrate, it actually tells your mind and your body and your soul, I like this. I want more of this. And then it also shifts your identity from like being like, I'm not able to do this, I'm not confident, to like, wow, I did it. I'm doing it. Right. And that's a beautiful way to rewire and repattern and reparent yourself. Yes. So I love that. Okay. I know I jumped a little. Tell me, like, after your resume, so you applied online and then did they just call you?
So no, no, they did not just call me. And I also want to say I didn't meet two of the major requirements. One of them being that I had to be bilingual, which I am not, even though I'm an Ortiz, I'm not bilingual. And it was also a senior role. And I've never really directly managed a team or anything like that. But I still was like, I'm still going to try.
This is mine. This is my job.
This is mine. I can step into this role. I know that I can. And, hey, I'll learn Spanish, I'll figure it out. And I told myself, like, I'll let them tell me no. I'm not going to tell myself no. I'll let them do it if they're going to do it. So I submitted my resume. Like it took a couple of weeks for me to kind of like work on it, get my like cover letter together. But I was so pleased with it. Like, I enjoyed working on it because I knew I was working towards something. Like, it was very focused. And I submitted it online. And then what I did was, and this is me just following all of your guidance, I searched on LinkedIn. I'd also created a LinkedIn for the first time, like actually fleshed out my profile. Again, something that ChatGPT helped me with. So now I had this, and it was just like, okay, great. This is like my digital business card. I'm good to go. What I did, I got on LinkedIn and I searched for the hiring manager. I searched, I might have used like Google too, LinkedIn, Facebook, like whatever I could. And I got the name of who it seemed was the talent acquisition manager. And when I sent in my application, I immediately sent my cover letter and resume to this person. I let them know how I found them and, that I hoped that I would hear back from them. And I followed up, I think maybe, if not every week, then every couple of weeks. I might have given it 2 weeks. When a month had passed by and I hadn't heard from this person, I looked for someone else. And I also, while I had messaged that person, I was tapping my networks. I had already worked for someone who's in nonprofit. And so I was like, do you know anybody at Planned Parenthood? Like, anybody at all. I was asking whoever I could, do you know someone? Do you think you could put me in touch with someone? And this is kind of the best part of the story, Emily, is that for the next few months, my journey, I really had to believe in myself at this point, because I knew that I was the best candidate. I just felt it inside. And I knew that if I could just speak to someone, that they would at least consider me very strongly, and I think that was something that made me it took me a little bit of time to submit my resume finally, because I just felt so like, but I don't know someone. And I was just like, I'll just be damned if I spent all this time and energy doing this and my resume just goes into some black hole. I was just like, I don't deserve that. I know I deserve better than that. Somebody needs to look at my resume. And it was keeping me from pulling the trigger. And at a certain point, I was like, Soraya, I don't have control over what happens beyond hitting submit, but you did put all the work in. I'm really proud of you, and we're going to do whatever we can. And for the next couple of months, I was tapping my networks to see if anyone knew of anybody. I was following up with, this person who I reached out to. There was another person that I tried connecting with. And randomly, one day, I was just, biking around the city. I was on my way to Macy's, and I just happened to like ride my bike through this area in Harlem where there was like it seemed like a wellness fair or health fair. And I just thought like, oh, okay, let me check this out. Like I could see a lot of people around, a lot of different vendors. And there were a few different like health insurance vendors. So I went and I was like, does anyone know? I was like, is there any chance that maybe there's like a Planned Parenthood vendor here? And one of the organizers of the event, she was like, I'm not sure. She's like, it's possible, take a look around. We do have like a little health pavilion. Maybe there's somebody there. So I looked around, I went up and down the event. I didn't see anybody, but I continued to like bike around, and I biked past this one little area where there was like a fitness company. They had people doing like outdoor workouts with kettlebells. And I was like, I think that's my friend's gym. I think that might be my friend's gym. But I was like, but I don't see my friend, because there's a few different kettlebell gyms in Harlem. So I was like, is it his? I'm like, but he's not here. So then I'm thinking like, all right, I guess I'll leave. I didn't find Planned Parenthood. I didn't find my friend. And I happened to turn to like just go away, and I see my friend. And we started talking, we're catching up, and he's like, how's everything? And I'm telling him, I was like, man, I applied for this job at Planned Parenthood. I've done my best to try to get my foot in the door and try to speak to someone, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I've kind of hit a wall. And, he was like, well, he told me, he's like, you know what? I think he was like, yo, my friend used to work at Planned Parenthood. He was like, and if I'm not mistaken, he was like, I feel like she was pretty important in the organization. Like, I feel like she was, did something kind of important. He was like, send me your resume tomorrow, and I'm going to get in touch with her. He's like, I'm about to have dinner with her soon, and I'll at the very least, like, I can give her your information, and, we'll see what happens. He was like, I'm glad you told me about this. We have to be willing to ask for help. And he was like, we're going to see what happens. So the next day I got in touch with my friend. I sent him my resume, and he followed up with me the next day. He showed me the email that he had written to his friend, and I then was able to see the email that she immediately sent to the I don't remember who the person was specifically, but like, talent acquisitions or something like that. And she was saying, hey, a dear friend of mine has recommended somebody. I think you should take a look at their resume. They seem like a very promising candidate. I hope that you'll follow up with them. And at that point, I was celebrating that too, because I just felt honored to be helped. It was touching for it was so touching for this person who doesn't even know me to vouch for me, and I heard from Planned Parenthood, like within days, they had reached out to me. They wanted to set up a phone screener. And the story is not quite finished there. It's not quite, and the rest was history. I made it to the final round of interviews. It was between myself and another candidate for that specific position, because remember, I didn't meet those two major requirements.
Yeah.
And I'd had to get like a in the meantime job, right? Like I had turned down this other job with a nonprofit that it was full time. This was with a mentor of mine, and I turned it down on faith, because I was like, I would hate to take on this position, knowing that if this comes through and I want to give this more time, I have a feeling about it. I want to give it more time. So I turned it down, and I took on a job at a retail store, just like a part-time retail gig. And I was waiting out the process. And within like maybe a few weeks, a month of me working at that retail job, they let me know that I did not get that position. They, because the interviews were kind of dragging out. I'd had to do like a panel interview and make a PowerPoint presentation, something I had never done before. I almost wanted to quit at that point, because it was just like, I don't even have a computer at home. Like I was having to learn how to use Google Slides on my phone and make this presentation, to do this interview. But I just kept telling myself, I can do hard things. I'm going to do this. I'm going to see this all the way through. People at the library rallied around me just to give me a space to do my interview, to give me a laptop and a quiet room to do my interview because I needed help, and so I just knew, like, no matter what happens, I did the absolute best that I could do. There is nothing that I would change about how I approach this situation. And even if I don't get it, man, I'm just so proud of myself. I wouldn't change anything. Like I have won because I have changed the way that I've approached. I can never unknow these things that I've learned, and it will always guide me, in my job search or in a career search, changing a career. It will always be a foundation that I've built now, that I have. And I just took that with me. And so when I got that first no, it hurt. Yeah. It hurt. And I took a few days to be with it, but very quickly, I had written to the human resources manager, and I was just like, I really appreciate, everything. I've learned so much throughout this process. You guys can't imagine how much I have learned just by applying to this position. But please keep me in mind. If this isn't the right fit for me, maybe there's something else. Please keep my resume on file. I'd love to stay connected. And thank you so much. And the next week, this is like over the course of a few days, like the next week, the director, my now supervisor, reached out to me and said, I thought she was calling to console me, calling to say like, we really wanted you, but we had to go with someone who met these particular requirements. But she was letting me know, someone is leaving our team and you are my top candidate. You're who I want. This process is going to take some time. And if you have a job right now, keep it, hang on to it. This is going to take some time. Please hang in there. But I want you to know, like, you're who I want. I want you on my team. I've let HR know this, and we're going to make this happen. And for the next 2 months, I hung in there, and finally, like, this was kind of like the position that was right below the senior position, very similar, but not a senior role and not requiring me to be bilingual, which I'm somewhat relieved about. And I've been here a little over a month at this point. And so.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. Okay. I have so many thoughts right now. So I'm just going to vouch that you are a great storyteller. You have me like at the edge of my seat right now because I'm like, what happened? What happened? Oh my gosh, I'm going crazy right now. But yeah, I really just love I believe that there are no coincidences in life, but more of like synchronicities. And right. How cool was it that you went and saw a friend at this health and wellness? Like it wasn't Planned Parenthood, but it was somebody who connected you to that. And just your bravery and just sharing to the world and anybody you knew, like, does anybody know anyone? Because I know this is a line for me. And to even say no to an opportunity when you are like living in New York without any funds coming through, to say no because I am holding out for this aligned, intentional opportunity that this job has my name written on it. And it's not the exact job, but it was because you shared, like a lot of people just take no as like no, but you were like, no means not yet. Like I'm just going to do anything I can to see where this connection and this relationship can go. And you truly, like when a door closed, you just opened another door. That's incredible. Thank you. And something that I wish every job seeker knew, because so many people are afraid of the follow-up and so many people are afraid to like speak their voice and send that final email, but you did it. So, okay, I guess there's a couple of questions I want to ask, but I want to be conscious of the time. So I'm going to ask you, how has your life changed since this new job?
Well, just very briefly, I mean, there's just a lot more like calm. I feel like I finally was able to just like,
You're no longer drowning at sea. Right. You like went to the shore.
Yeah.
You're on the beach now.
Yeah. It just, things have, it's almost like a matter of having to get accustomed to like a calm now. You're used to so much chaos and so much like struggling and hustling and grinding and
and unknown, like unpredictability.
Yes. And just kind of like constantly having to jump off these little cliffs and right, like.
So your nervous system is like more regulated and calm now. Just like I could be like back in my body and not frantic every morning.
Yeah. So, just that was like an immediate change, was just having like income coming in again, and having reached a new level of income that I hadn't previously. Like I'm not going to share what it is, but like I never thought that I could even just get to that. Like, and if I was to reveal the number, for some people it might be very low, but like it's all relative based on like what you've done, your experience. And so it was like, I want at least this, I want this. And then it was higher than that, so it was just like, it just reinforced a lot of things for me, but getting the job wasn't like the thing. As thankful as I am and as happy as I am about it, what was really reinforcing was me throughout the entire experience, because I had to show up for myself in a very different way that I was accustomed to. It was like, what would I do if I were, how would I carry myself and approach this situation if I just were this confident person already? Yeah. If I, like, it was like I was like role playing, but not really. It's me. Like, you can be a confident person. It doesn't mean that you're confident all the time in every single situation, and you don't have to be. It's okay. Like, we're human. And I think that was something that really, really changed, was like how I started to see myself and my abilities, and then having like a lot more like financial stability, being able to pay things off, it just took a load off. It just was it was like a huge relief, like, whew. And then also, I'm still getting used to the job. It's still very new. I'm being eased in, but it's very apparent to me, like, even just easing into a role is something that most people are not accustomed to. It's like, you're here, you're hired, get to work. It's
immediately like, contribute. Yeah.
Yes, contribute immediately. And like, my director, our team is very supportive. We're a very small team. We're very supportive of one another. It's a very, I think, healthy and like nourished, like a
nurturing,
like a nurturing work environment. I was going to say positive, but sometimes that word just feels overused to me. It's a very nurturing work environment, which is also something that I've not always been accustomed to. So those are some of like the things that I've noticed immediately. Just feeling kind of like,
yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. Like that to me, like to find peace and calmness is so priceless, especially when you're used to operating from the other end of the spectrum. So that's priceless. Okay, just 3 more quick questions. If anyone else listening right now is struggling right now in their job search, what is your words of wisdom or encouragement to them?
I think, I would say, please be willing to support your small wins also. Take your journey a small piece at a time, and be willing to show up, even when you don't want to. And sometimes that means kind of like cutting something into even smaller bits, right? And then celebrate yourself when you do it. Whatever it is. It could be taking a walk. It could be taking a break. Going out and doing something fun. Maybe you get a sweet treat. I don't know. Like just find ways to celebrate yourself through this process, and be patient and kind with yourself, because sometimes you're literally doing the best that you can do. Sometimes you've done everything, and something might still not be meant for you. It might be a not this, it could be a not now. And there's reasons for that, and it's kind of hard to hold on to that when you're in a situation where it's like, I really need something. But, trust yourself. And like, when you show up, it's kind of like, nobody can take that from you, It's like, you did that at the very least, and you kind of got to like, kiss the rest up.
I love that. Yeah. I feel like if you can enjoy the journey and like really learn to be in the journey versus just be happy at the final destination, you're winning You're winning in
Right.
life. You're winning in your job search.
Yeah.
I ask this to every guest on the show. How do you cultivate more joy in your life?
Well, that's something that I'm still working on, and I think that makes sense considering I'm very newly in this space of not having to, like being able to kind of regulate. But what I am looking forward to is just investing in like hobbies. I kind of want to do everything. I want to learn everything. I want to take like sewing classes again, guitar lessons, dance classes. I feel like I want to do things to creatively express myself and not limit it to it having to be comedy or acting. I just want to play and enjoy myself. And I also allow myself to like treat myself, because I think when you get into a place where you're having a penny pinch all the time, when you finally get resources, it can be like, let me hold on to it all. Like, I don't know if I can spend anything. So I'm allowing myself to invest in myself and to enjoy my money, because I really worked hard to get this, and I deserve to be able to enjoy it. I'm saving a lot too, but but I think that you should definitely celebrate yourself. So that's what I'm doing. I'm allowing myself to like go out and meet with friends again and eat, because that was something that for a long time I wasn't able to do. It was just, I had to say no to everything, and so now it's like, it's not the biggest thing, but it means a lot to me to be able to just go out with a friend and be like, hey, I got this,
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. So like on episode 2, I talked about how to have fun as an adult, and like a hobby and a skill is so important. I feel like Duolingo and Spanish classes are in your near future, because
I'm taking them right now.
Oh, awesome. But in episode number 4, I'm actually like, I talked about why I love money. And I think it's so important to like really want more money. So, and like not demonize money, but be like, I love money and money loves me. So that you can do those nice things and treat people out. And, it's just a tool. So I love that. And I think everyone should have like a fun, like in their budget, they should allocate like, I don't know how much percentage, but like 5 or 10 or whatever percent, just fun and creating memories and experiences.
Yes.
So I love
saving up for a trip. I'm saving up for like a vacation, because it's been a very long time. So
yes. Oh, I love it. Okay. And then final question is, where can people find you or connect with you?
So right now I'm on LinkedIn. I think that might be the only
you have a
social
LinkedIn.
media. I'm like, my Instagram page is deactivated for the time being, and I don't feel bad about that. I quite honestly do not miss being on social media, but you can find me on LinkedIn.
Are born from the same cloth.
I do not miss it. I really hope that my career is not dependent on having that, but if it is, I'll find a way to approach it. But I guess you can find me on LinkedIn for the time being. I don't know like what specifically my link is, but I guess, we can figure that out.
I'll put it in the show notes. But now that you have a awesome LinkedIn profile, I'm sure people can find you by your name, Suraiyah Ortiz.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I'll put it in the show notes as well, in case people resonate with this and they're like, I need to just reach out to you and say hi and how awesome you are, because you really are amazing.
That would be really cool. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Soraya, for your time and sharing your story. I know so many people are just going to be blown away by your job search strategies, your resilience, and all the things to get to where you ultimately are. So it's such a testament to just how bold and courageous and smart you are and resourceful. But resilient is the word that comes up the most for me.
Thank you very much. This was such a pleasure. And also I want to say that, when I first began this journey, and when I saw that Planned Parenthood position and I was like, that's mine. I also at that point was like, when I get this, I'll be writing Emily an email and letting her know everything that it took. And like, the more it dragged out and the more it was kind of like, juicy and interesting, I was like, I cannot wait to tell Emily this story. and it helped me, because it was like, I can't wait to thank her. I can't wait to tell her how much, something that she did just as a free resource, was so helpful for me. I really, that was a part of the story the entire time. I almost felt like I had this kinship with you that, you weren't even aware of, because it would be like, when I would have these moments, Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that car
That's
honking.
okay.
When I would have these moments of feeling like, man, I'm in, like, I kind of hit a wall or I'm feeling stuck, I would remind myself, like, I was like, this is just going to add more. It just adds more flavor, more layers to the story. And it was helpful to
100%.
know that I would reach out to you and that I would be able to share the success with you. So
yeah, because your story would have been so dull if you're just like, I wrote my resume and I applied and I got a call the next day. I love how your story turned out.
Yes. I really wouldn't change it. I feel like everything was so valuable. Things that didn't work out taught me other lessons. And that's why I think it's important to say, like, I can do hard things. And I can also, like, a rejection doesn't mean it's a rejection of me, you know? That was important to learn too. It really reinforced my confidence in myself, and, you know, everything that went into it, I just wouldn't change it because it's helped me to see myself a little differently, and definitely helped me to change how I would approach, you know, needing to do something like this in the future. And I also feel like I really enjoyed this process, and I feel like I would enjoy helping others in this process as well. Like, I feel like I could help someone to maybe navigate this a little differently. So I love what you do, and I see the value in it, and I think it's incredible.
Thank you so much, Soraya. And you're absolutely a great mentor / coach. Like, I see all the work that you've done on yourself, and you definitely have a gift of helping others and sharing it in a fun and inspiring way. So thank you for being here.
It was a pleasure.
I love Suraiyah so much, and what a testament to what is possible when you have a vision, you really believe in it, and you have action to back it up. One of my favorite quotes is from Oprah. She says, if you can see it and you believe it, then you can achieve it. And I 100% believe that any goal is reverse engineerable so long as you have a clear goal in place. That leads me into the Career Clarity Workshop. I'm so excited to deliver this at the end of May. All the details are going to be in the show notes, or if you want to go to www.cultivate.com/clarity. I highly recommend you sign up if you are someone who is trying to figure out, what do I want in my career? Who am I? What can I target in terms of titles, industries, environments that I just know when I look at it, I can say, this is mine because I know me so well. And now I can articulate it and become a magnet to it because I'm able to translate what I want, what I can do, and what's most important to me, not only on your resume or on your LinkedIn, but in person, in your networking conversations, in your interviews, or when somebody just asks you to create a bio or tell me about yourself. Career clarity truly is the starting ground of finding a career that lights you up, but also living a life that is filled with intention, because I believe intention is also what drives joy. All right. So again, you can go to www.cultivate.com/clarity. And if you already have clarity, you know exactly what you want, and you want support in landing that dream job, check out the free masterclass called How to Land Your Dream Job Without Applying Online and Wasting Time. That's over at www.cultivate.com/training. All right. Until next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please share a comment on my blog, or if you aren't already following me on social media, come soak up more inspiration and daily wisdom. I'm over at Cultivate, or you can go to my website, cultivate.com, and learn more. Don't forget to hit subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode, and I can't wait to connect with you again soon.